So one of the things I wanted to talk about was the Akiya, or the abandoned homes in Japan. I think on social media as well as other platforms, it's been a really viral thing to see cheap homes in Japan marketed online. And I think with the cost of living in the other countries, it's really made people kind of more aware that there are very affordable homes in Japan. And before I continue, I should state that I do have a background in real estate and my family does have backgrounds in construction, so I'm pretty aware of what it takes to buy a house as well as maintain and fix a home. With all that being said, there are a lot of options online for cheap homes, free homes, or abandoned homes in general. And yes, you're not wrong to see there are properties that can go as low as like $1,000, and some are actually just free where they'll just give it away. And while that does sound too good to be true, in a lot of cases it kind of is. And that's the thing that people are not going to really tell you on these sites, because they kind of just want you to watch the video, or in a lot of aspects maybe they're working with a real estate agent who wants you to buy the property. Some of the things that we've seen in Akiya here are basically things that would really cost you a lot of money to fix. So the first topic is toilets, or bathrooms in general. A lot of homes in Japan, or at least the rural areas where a lot of these Akiya or abandoned homes are located, operate on a cesspool system. And I mean this in the most plain and basic form. It's literally a hole in the ground. But they do cap it with like a toilet bowl, but basically it just goes straight into the ground right below your home. Needless to say, that's of course a super strange way for Westerners to use the toilet, but it's pretty common in the rural areas in Japan. Biggest negative in my opinion for this is probably smell, because during the hot season, it's probably not going to be the best there. Another big issue for me is like tatami mats, because a lot of times in these abandoned homes, nobody's really caring for these properties, so the tatami mats start to go moldy, and of course like mildew starts building up on top of that as well. And between that, there's also like moisture issues. So the tatami mats in general just become completely unsalvageable in a lot of cases, or they're not safe to keep. And the subfloor below it generally becomes pretty unstable, if not damaged as well. So that's another thing that you have to fix. Almost all, and please don't quote me on this, but a lot of the abandoned homes in like the countryside, they're not going to have insulation. They're pretty much going to be single walled homes, so you're going to have to do something about that to stay warm during the winter times. And this is pretty much for the Western aspect. If you have a inaka home and it's a small property, relatively small, there's probably not going to be a parking space. So just FYI on that. If you intend to have a car because you're living in the countryside, there's a likelihood that your home, if it's a really small property, is not going to have parking. If you're looking for like a Akiya in Hokkaido specifically, Aomori, or the very cold regions of Japan, I highly recommend that you would look at the plumbing situation. A lot of times there's a whole lot of plumbing damage or water damage because of frost and freeze. And some of it is not reported because the owner just doesn't know, because a lot of these properties are inherited and they just don't really check on them. One of the last things that I do want to point out is that the electrical systems are probably going to be really bad and need updating as well. With that being said, while the value of the property initially is pretty good and worthwhile, the overall cost for you to repair the home will be completely different. So while you might purchase the property for $1,000, the brokerage fees will be about $3,000 to $4,000, plus whatever repairs and time and effort you have to put into the home. So if it's too good to be true, there's a likelihood or a potential possibility that it is. So I highly recommend that you go ahead and do your due diligence and look into every aspect that you possibly can before committing to something. With all that being said, House Kun was an abandoned home and it ended up being really perfect in every way, with the exception of the landslide, but structurally and everything else, it was really good. So it was well worth it for us. Okay, bye!